EPN Network Media. News for all races, connecting you to the world.
And I ask myself, between 1999 and today, which people have benefited from democracy? Those who have benefited from democracy are actually people who have held political office. Their personal affairs are much better. They are in greater control of their economic affairs. They have more influence. They can drive you and I off the road as they go.
Yes, you say you don't see a divide.
No. I say fundamentally.
Yes.
In the ideal setting, the business of democracy is to give all of us space.
Indeed.
So I now migrated back to why we're not there.
Okay.
That in place of this ideal, this is what we have today. And you raised a question at the commencement of this conversation about whether the processes are or whether we can look at, do we have party democracy? The answer is no. Across all the political parties, whether in power or not, because candidates are not chosen democratically, we know that. We can pretend that it is not so. So when the question is asked, have we gained? I'll not only say no, I'll add that we have actually retrogressed. Retrogressed to the point that at the commencement of this democracy, there was the illusion of local governments, local government chairmen, councillors, and the rest of it. We moved into the democracy. Local government councils were unilaterally dissolved by governors, and so that's a step back. It's a loss to democracy. People no longer thought they should hold their local government chairman responsible because they're there at the pleasure of the governor. At the level of the state, the same thing. Now, at the level of party, internal party democracy, the same problem. And so you find that even at the level of the there's the fundamental and then there are the incidentals. At the level of the fundamentals of democracy, which is values, how we relate, the fact that you have a right to a free choice and the rest of it, we've lost mileage at the level of fundamentals. At the level of incidentals, which you will then say are the dividends of democracy, what are the indices, or will you call the key performance indices? Is it social infrastructure? Is it roads? Is it electricity? Is it citizen welfare? Is it the state of the economy? Is it national security? So even at the level of incidentals, that look, you've got it right at the fundamental level, all the values are right. Now, at the level of living, we've lost substantial mileage across all measuring platforms. So my initial observation here is that as we celebrate democracy today, International Democracy Day, there are about 4 questions to ask. Does democracy necessarily improve citizen welfare? That's number one. Number two, the understanding of democracy. Is it possible to have the institutions of democracy and no democracy? Because we have all the institutions. The answer is also yes. Is it possible to, replace what you call the people with interests of probably the three of us? And so when we speak of democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people, it turns out to be government of Hussaini, okay, and the Maokbe, Foke and Maokbe, and the rest of the people in the hall are getting angry on our behalf when we quarrel. Those are the issues.
It's amazing. I mean, you even have to chuckle as well. Yesterday, I was involved in a conversation right here in our studios, and it was very interesting. We're looking at internal party politics in the APC. They're getting ready for their state congresses, and as a matter of fact, they'll start sale of forms today. It was very interesting seeing how even saying that we're practicing a democracy within political parties.
It's not happening.
Within political parties, they're afraid of voting. They'd rather have consensus candidates. And this, it's very interesting because if that's how it's run in political parties, largely it will seem that maybe that is what is also happening at the polls. There is some ceremony around, voting. But maybe there is sometimes unspoken agreement that, there have been, I don't know. I'm just saying. Because, the implications of the question I'm asking has far-reaching ramifications. First and foremost, we're worried about the kinds of candidates that are thrown up at elections. And then we also worry about the sanctity of the polls. We've been saying in recent times voter apathy, and a lot of people, are trying to reinvigorate the populace, the electorate, to say, look, your votes will count. Your votes do count. Your vote is your power. And people should go out to the polls. However, if it does seem that somehow this consensus candidacy business continues from inside the political parties to the polls, even amongst political parties, isn't there a problem? Is our democracy in danger? Let me ask you if you sense this.
Well, I want to affirm a lot of what the doctor said in terms of the previous challenges that face Nigerian democracy. There's no escaping it, like I said. And you're right to say that the parties are key culprits in blocking the path or keeping us at a stage that's far from what is generally desirable. You're right to also point out the significant challenges of insecurity, the economy that's not distributing resources equitably, the list goes on, corruption, etc. But I just want to say that I think it's important to also be careful in having that conversation within a context where, in the wider sub-region, we've seen 3 coups in, a period under a year, at least 5 months.
Very true.
So I think that we should also affirm these values, and despite the fact that they are not being realized, because we've seen the opposites, and it certainly has not redounded to the benefits of the wider citizenry. So I think it's important just to affirm that to begin with and say that even the symbol of one person, one vote is not meaningless. It's a base from which we can build a functional democracy. That we've not gotten there yet, or that there are significant challenges that have emerged in the context of us trying to practice this is a given that I think even people in power would admit to. So I guess in summary, what I would say there is that what are the solutions, right? What's the way forward? It can't be simply throwing our hands up and saying that there are significant challenges and what do we do next? Or it can't be retreating into out of the public sphere into our private spaces and deepening the apathy that you so rightly point to. It has to be more democracy, actually. And this is particularly true within the parties, as you say. If we don't have the capacity within parties to select candidates on the basis of their popularity, on the basis of their platform, then ultimately the choices that the wider electorate is presented with are already narrowed. So I completely agree with the sentiments there from the perspective of the essential kind of requirement of needing to deepen party democracy. And we certainly are far from where we want to be. But I think there's enough, there is a base that we can build on. And I want to say that I find that that's quite important to emphasize.
Well, I don't know if you see a streak there, even though you have recommended that the cure to our ills is even more democracy. The cure to little democracy is even more democracy. However, sometimes you do sense a pushback. You sense a pushback from political parties. I'm just wondering now if you see a streak of hope. I mean, in recent times, we've seen not just, yes, the polls are one thing, but the part of governance that should come with, that should come with our democratic process, the path of accountability. We've seen in recent times more and more young people who are the majority of our demographic demand accountability. And indeed, as you rightly pointed out, there are things to celebrate in this democracy. Yesterday, I happened to be at the anniversary celebration of budget. The NGO, which is, set itself to, explain the budget of the national of the federation, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level, to ordinary citizens, and put that as a tool. However, a fundamental question was asked as to how we're engaging even with the information at our disposal. Some people say, however, that the fact that such an organization can exist and it was formed by young people does point to the fact that there is an increasing engagement with the process, however slow the results might be. Is it something that you agree with? Does it really give you hope that indeed more and more, because we've seen protests so far, but we've also seen young people putting in the work to say, we're not just going to be, shouting slogans, we're also willing to do the work that you need to move this country forward?
Yes, I'll respond to that. After that, I'll touch on the solutions. Yes, it is good that the budget should be interrogated all the way, across all the levels. So it's a positive development. But beyond the interrogation of the budget, they must take two other steps. Answer the question, is there a difference between expenditure and impact on citizen welfare? The answer is yes. So that organization has to take that further step. Okay, you've spent X amount of money on roads. Do you now have roads? You spent so amount of money carrying out this project. That project you carried out, who did it serve? The contractor or the people? Mr. Governor, you've spent 4 billion on new schools. Did you recruit new teachers? The ones around, did you spend money training them? Did you improve their pay? So this is a very good, so it's a platform. We can only now give them more and more to put on the table. Now, having dealt with that, we move to the next.
Oh, no, they say that what they're trying to do is provide information so the citizens can ask the questions.
I'm giving them more work. There is no citizen platform. You see, let's not set up divisional platforms. I set up an NGO and our business to just ask questions and go home. We think we're doing enough. You must do terrain analysis. What kind of citizen do we have that I'm giving this assignment? Where do they meet? Nowhere. So you that have awakened, the consciousness that has risen in you, take on the job. There's no place on earth where citizens, after first, what medium did you use? Newspapers, right? Television. In a country where over 68% of the people at any material time do not have electricity. And where those who really listen to radio have specific stations they listen to. I'm talking genuine national development now. Go do the real work that will matter.
But isn't that a problem? Because
it is.
How do citizens then engage?
The point is this. Citizen engagement means that if you want to engage, probably there are 3 people who listen to him. I go and talk to him. There are 19 people who listen to you, I come and talk to you. There are power centers all over the country. If you want things to happen in my town and you establish a relationship with the town union president, you have a 50% head start. I want to go to a particular community in Kano and I look around, there are a few popular imams and I talk with them before I get to the people. The fact that they'll be sitting beside me has given me endorsement. So this elite artificial engagement where we make speeches in halls containing 300 people, and I assume we're addressing not just the United Nations but people in their kitchens. The elite, the young people who are trying to make a change must also understand the national demographics. It's not about headlines, it's not about reports, it's not about getting an award. Promise the youth to watch in the next 5 years, you keep the plaque in your house, and you appear to know it's more than that. Our country is in trouble. We need development. So they must be commended for this, but we should put more on their table. This is help. Help us. The citizens you're saying you're showing the figures, they don't know what to do with it. It doesn't impact their lives. That's assignment 1. Assignment 2, let them push state governments and the federal government to budget in consultation. You come to my village, you say we need what you might call a legacy project, and you build a fine monument. And that's all you've done for me. It makes no impact. So this is a good thing. They should build on it. The other thing on the matter of what to do, solutions. You see, our parties are the way they are today because they are not parties until a few months before elections. Let all the political parties every month have at least one rally in 1 or 2 or 3 local governments merged throughout the 4 years, whether they're in power or not. Now that enables party members to come together. That enables party chairmen across the local governments to meet each other. That enables them to quarrel over funds for hiring buses and all of that. Then you build party solidarity. You leaders will know themselves. It's not so during the election they come together. Second is when he became chairman, there was a workshop they organized, ever the takeoff. These were some of the things I put on the table for them. We need political opposition, not because we hate the party in power, but because with opposition, the party in power will perform better. Awo showed us the example. So please have these rallies, rotate it among all the local governments, and it's affordable. What does it require? If the parties begin to do that, the first thing that will happen is that we begin to build followership. You'll find that two of us can quarrel because I don't agree what's in your manifesto, with what's in your manifesto, you don't agree with mine. That shows we're becoming ideological members of our parties, and not just people who attend rallies and are giving money, among several other measures. But I'm sure my colleague will have something to say before I get back on that.
Okay, but just before you say anything, let's quickly play this report. Dr. Kayode Fayemi and trying to remember who now, but Dr. Kayode Fayemi was asking citizens to be more alert. You have, to participate more in our democracy. You have said that there are no, the platforms are not exactly the platforms for engagement, and they're power silos, you would say, all over the country. But we'll come to that. Let's quickly take a listen to this report.
Several advocacy groups gathered to mark a decade of critical analysis of Nigeria's budgeting system, organized by civil society organization Budget. One issue that continues to dominate conversations at events like this is how to open up the political space for citizens' participation.
Almost 3 decades ago,
Ekiti State Governor Dr. Kayode Fayemi joins the conversation virtually. He and a former Minister of Information, Mr. Frank Wike Jr., urged citizens to hold elected political leaders accountable for their actions.
Our pursuit of a more result-driven democracy that translates to meaningful developmental outcomes cannot be achieved without robust citizens' engagement and effective participation in public affairs. It is therefore time that we, the people, assume our authority and wield the inherent power to place a demand on good governance and institutional accountability.
in the transition to an open, transparent, and more accountable state, efforts have been made at all levels to reduce corruption by reforming erstwhile opaque and largely secretive financial management system. The added value in a civil society monitoring initiative such as this is the degree to which it empowers the broader citizenry to demand change from the elected authority by monitoring performance in an independently verifiable manner.
The open governance system is a structure that encourages transparency in government, with citizens having access to government data and holding leaders accountable. The Minister of Budget and National Planning emphasizes the need for civil society groups to collaborate with the government.
I think you need to work with us more as a partnership rather than being seen as an attack dog, because that doesn't help. Because if I see you as an enemy, then I'm not going to open my books to you no matter what you say.
The Nigeria civic space has opened up gradually in recent years, but the consensus at this meeting is that more young people need to participate and ask the right questions on the stewardship of political leaders.
Well, I'll be asking my guests to react to that in a moment, but I hear that Kayode has a question. Kayode.
Well, thanks, Mark. But I think I'll just merge it together because it's quite important to keep that flow from that particular event. And let me take this to Dr. Hussaini now. And pardon me, I'll keep going back like everyone to Mark West's definition, or at least a general definition of democracy, which she started off with. And I think it makes a big assumption, and I probably would just like you to clear that once and for all. It makes an assumption that, yes, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Now, you see people being repeated in that definition, essentially saying that people naturally want to be involved in government, as in actively involved, not just some section of people, right? Not just the political elites, party members, but everyone, the people, essentially.